6 months had passed since Captain Veltar first limped into Bay 94 with his dying ship. Now he stood in what used to be the lower ring of Kepler Station, watching something that would have seemed impossible a year ago. The entire section had been transformed into a massive repair complex that rivaled the biggest facilities in hegemony space. Ships from every corner of the galaxy waited in organized queues for their turn at human repair bays. Veltar counted vessels from 17 different species, including some he had never seen before. The waiting list had grown to 3 months, but captains still came because they knew what they would get. Their ships returned to them better than new. Hard to believe it all started with one human and a cluttered workshop, Veltar said to Do-hyun as they walked through the main corridor. Do-hyun looked around at the bustling activity. Humans worked alongside aliens of every description, sharing techniques and solving problems together. Still feels like a cluttered workshop to me. Just a bigger one. They stopped at a viewing window that looked out into one of the larger repair bays. Inside, a team of mixed humans and aliens was working on a massive crystalline heavy transport. The ship was so large it barely fit in the bay. Its crystalline hull glowed with internal light, creating rainbow patterns on the walls. "What's wrong with that one?" Veltar asked. "Resonance cascade in the crystal matrix. Happens sometimes on older crystalline ships. The crystals start vibrating at the wrong frequency and the whole ship shakes itself apart. How do you fix something like that?" "Music," Do-hyun said with a straight face. Veltar stared at him. "Music?" Yejin figured it out. She's got a background in sound engineering along with her mechanical training. The crystal matrix needs to vibrate at a specific harmonic frequency. Instead of trying to stop the vibrations, we're teaching the crystals to sing in tune. Through the window, Veltar could see a young human woman connecting speakers to various points along the ship's hull. She was playing what sounded like classical music, but with strange harmonic overtones that made his ears tingle. The crystalline engineers said it was impossible to recalibrate a cascade once it started, Do-hyun continued. They were going to scrap the ship and harvest the usable crystals. Now it'll fly better than when it was first grown. They moved on to another bay where Ji-young was teaching a class of young engineers. The students included humans, Vorthak, Trilak, and even a few Zephyrians. She was demonstrating how to weld in zero gravity, something most engineering schools didn't bother to teach. "Why don't traditional schools teach practical skills like that?" Veltar asked. "Because it's dangerous and unpredictable," Do-hyun replied. "Much safer to teach students to work in controlled environments with perfect conditions. But real engineering happens in imperfect conditions. Ships break down in vacuum. Equipment fails during storms. You can't always wait for ideal circumstances." In another section, Veltar found Tae-hyun working with a group of Trilak computer specialists on something that looked like organized chaos. Dozens of different computer components were connected with cables that formed a complex web across multiple work tables. "We're building a universal translator," Tae-hyun explained when he saw Veltar's confused expression. "Not for languages, for machines. A device that can make any computer talk to any other computer, regardless of who built them or when." "Is that possible?" Veltar asked. "Shouldn't be," one of the Trilak engineers said. "Too many different protocols, incompatible architectures, security restrictions. But humans don't seem to understand what's impossible." "We understand it just fine," Tae-hyun grinned. "We just don't let it stop us." The most impressive sight was in the main engineering lab, where Min-jae had set up what he called the Impossible Problems Department. This was where the really challenging cases came, ships with damage or malfunctions that no conventional facility would even attempt to repair. Currently, they were working on a Vorthak exploration ship that had been caught in a quantum storm. The ship's entire structure was phase-shifted, existing partially in normal space and partially in subspace. The crew had escaped in life pods, but the ship itself was considered a total loss. "How do you fix something that's only half there?" Veltar asked Min-jae. Very carefully, Min-jae replied. "We're using a combination of quantum phase modulators and gravitational field generators to pull the ship back into normal space. It's taking weeks of fine adjustments, but we're making progress." "Has this ever been done before?" "Not exactly. We're borrowing techniques from human dimensional research and combining them with Vorthak quantum mechanics. Neither approach would work alone, but together they might solve the problem." Veltar watched the delicate work being performed by a mixed team of human and Vorthak engineers. They moved slowly and carefully, making tiny adjustments to equipment that hummed with barely contained energy. The ship itself flickered in and out of visibility as they worked. What happens if you make a mistake? Veltar asked. The ship could be lost forever in subspace, Minjay said calmly. Or it could explode and take half the station with it. That's why we're being very careful. Doesn't that worry you? Of course it does. But the alternative is giving up. The ship's owner has been flying that vessel for 40 years. It's not just a machine to him. It's his home, his livelihood, his life. We can't save every ship, but we have to try. That evening, Veltar joined Doyen for dinner in the complex's cafeteria. The large room was filled with the sound of dozens of conversations in multiple languages. Engineers from different species shared tables, discussing problems and solutions with the easy camaraderie of people who spoke the same professional language. I've been thinking about something, Veltar said. Why are humans so different from the rest of us when it comes to engineering? Doyen considered the question while he ate. I think it's because we're still new to all this. Most galactic species have been traveling between stars for thousands of years. They've had time to develop proper ways of doing things, established procedures, safety regulations, all very sensible and logical. But we humans have only been in space for a few centuries. We don't have thousands of years of tradition telling us what's impossible. We look at problems with fresh eyes. Is that why human repair methods work so well? Partly, but I think there's more to it than that. Doyen gestured around the cafeteria. Look at this place. Humans and aliens working together, sharing knowledge, trying new approaches. That's what makes the difference. Other species don't cooperate like this. They cooperate, but usually within their own cultural boundaries. Vorthak engineers work with other Vorthak. Zephyrians prefer Zephyrian methods. Everyone stays in their comfortable bubbles. And humans? We don't have enough history to build comfortable bubbles. We're willing to learn from anyone who has something to teach. More importantly, we're willing to admit when our way isn't the best way. Veltar thought about this. In all his years of space travel, he had seen alien species working together on trade and diplomacy. But he had never seen the kind of technical cooperation that happened here every day. Engineers from traditionally rival species shared techniques and solved problems together. You're changing more than just how ships get repaired, Veltar said finally. How so? You're changing how the galaxy thinks about cooperation, about what's possible when different species work together instead of staying separate. Do-hyun smiled. Maybe that's the real reason alien captains prefer human repair bays. It's not just about fixing ships. It's about fixing the idea that we all have to do things the same old way forever. As Veltar prepared to leave Kepler Station the next day, he took one last walk through the repair complex. In every bay, he saw the same thing. Beings from different worlds working together to solve problems that had never been solved before. They argued and laughed and shared meals together. They taught each other new techniques and learned from each other's mistakes. The humans had given the galaxy more than just better ship repairs. They had given it hope that impossible problems could be solved, that different approaches could work together, and that the future might hold possibilities that no one had imagined before. As his ship pulled away from the station, Veltar realized that he was witnessing the beginning of something much larger than a successful repair business. He was seeing the birth of a new way for the galaxy's civilizations to work together, and it all started with one human who looked at a broken ship and said, "We can fix her." The Crimson Talon left Kepler Station 42 hours after arriving. Captain Veltar had expected to stay for weeks, maybe months. Instead, his ship was flying better than the day it left the shipyard. The quantum drive hummed with smooth power. The hull was stronger than before. Every system worked perfectly, but Veltar found himself reluctant to leave. For 2 days, he had watched the humans work with a combination of skill and creativity that challenged everything he thought he knew about engineering. They had turned impossible problems into simple solutions. They had made his broken ship into something better than new. "Safe travels, Captain," Doyen said as they shook hands at the docking port. "Bring her back any time she needs work. What do I owe you?" Veltar asked. He had been dreading this moment. The other facilities had wanted tens of thousands of credits. He had maybe 3,000 to his name. "Let's say 5,000 credits," Dohyun replied. "That covers parts and labor." Veltar stared at him. 5,000? But the Crystalline Collective wanted 200,000. The Zephyrians wanted 50,000 just for a diagnostic. Well, we didn't use 200,000 credits worth of parts. Most of what we used was recycled or modified from salvage. And my team enjoys solving puzzles. Hard to put a price on fun. As the Crimson Talon pulled away from the station, Veltar's communications officer Zeppim spoke up. Captain, we're getting messages from other ships. They want to know who repaired us. What kind of messages? Trade captains mostly. They heard about what the humans did. Some are asking for Kim's contact information. Veltar wasn't surprised. Word traveled fast on the merchant networks. Captains talked to each other at every port, sharing information about fuel prices, cargo opportunities, and repair facilities. A story like his would spread quickly. 2 weeks later, Veltar was back at Kepler Station with a cargo delivery. He made a point of visiting Bay 94 to check on Doyun and his team. What he found amazed him. The human repair facility had expanded. They now occupied 3 adjacent bays on the lower level. More ships were docked for repairs than Veltar had ever seen in one place. The waiting list, according to the docking master, was 2 weeks long. Business is good, Doyun said when Veltar found him working under the hood of a Vorthak freighter. Word gets around fast when you do good work. What kind of problems are they bringing you? All kinds. Captain Thexera over there, he pointed to a tall Vorthak female arguing with one of his mechanics, was told her quantum fluctuation dampener was beyond repair. 3 different facilities said she needed a complete engine replacement. What did you find? Coffee grounds. Doyun grinned. I'm sorry, what? The dampener was clogged with crystallized exotic matter residue. Happens sometimes on older ships. Normal solvents can't dissolve it. But coffee grounds, specifically earth coffee grounds, have the right chemical composition to break down the crystals without damaging the dampener components. Veltar shook his head. You used coffee to repair a quantum fluctuation dampener. Works better than the original cleaning solution. Cheaper too. Thexara's engine is running smoother than it has in years. Across the bay, Veltar saw Jiung working on what looked like a Zephyrian military scout ship. The vessel's entire forward section was twisted and melted, clearly damaged in some kind of energy weapon attack. Military ships too? Veltar asked. Captain Zikthara brought that one in yesterday. She was involved in a border skirmish with pirates. Her own people told her the ship was a total loss, too much structural damage to repair safely. But you're fixing it anyway, Ji-young. Figured out a way to reinforce the damaged areas with a carbon fiber mesh. Stronger than the original hull plates and half the weight. The ship will actually be faster when we're done. Veltar spent the afternoon walking through the expanded facility. Every bay had a different impossible problem being solved in ways that defied conventional engineering wisdom. He saw Tae-hyun teaching a group of young Trilak engineers how to interface incompatible computer systems. Min-jae was explaining chaos theory applications to a crystalline mathematician who had come to study the quantum drive modifications. How do you keep track of all these different techniques? Veltar asked Dohyun. We don't really. Each problem is different. We figure out solutions as we go. The important thing is not being afraid to try something new. But what about safety regulations? Quality control? Warranty procedures? Dohyun pointed to a wall covered with certificates and license documents. We follow all the safety rules that actually matter. The ones about radiation containment, pressure vessel integrity, life support standards. But a lot of regulations exist just to make bureaucrats feel important. Those we ignore. Don't the station authorities complain? They did at first. Sent inspectors down here every few days looking for violations. But then they noticed something interesting. What? Ships repaired by us have the lowest failure rate on the station. Lower than the big official facilities with all their paperwork and procedures. Hard to argue with results like that. That evening, Veltar joined a group of captains for dinner at a restaurant on the station's main commercial level. The conversation, as always, turned to ship maintenance and repair costs. I'm telling you, Captain Thexara was saying, these humans are revolutionizing space travel. My ship hasn't run this well since it was new. But their methods are so unorthodox, complained a Zephyrian transport captain named Zelnara. They don't follow proper procedures. They mix technologies that weren't designed to work together. Does it matter how they do it if it works? Asked Captain Zikthara. My ship was declared unsalvageable by Vorthak military engineers. Now it's stronger than ever. The point is consistency, Zelnara argued. How can we trust repairs that don't follow established standards? Because they work, Veltar said quietly. I've been flying the same routes for 15 years. I've used every major repair facility in this sector. None of them ever made my ship better than it was before it broke. That's not their job, Selnara replied. Their job is to restore functionality according to original specifications. Maybe that's the problem, Thexara suggested. Maybe we've become so focused on following specifications that we've forgotten how to improve them. The debate continued for hours. Some captains remained skeptical of human methods. They preferred the predictable, documented procedures of traditional facilities. But more and more were willing to try something different, especially when facing problems that conventional engineering couldn't solve. Word of Kim's garage spread beyond Kepler Station. Veltar heard stories from other ports, other systems. Human repair facilities were opening throughout the Outer Rim territories. They all shared the same philosophy. Fix the problem, don't worry about the rules. The established repair industry wasn't happy. Several large corporations complained to galactic trade authorities about unfair competition and safety violations. They demanded investigations and regulatory crackdowns, but the complaints fell on deaf ears. Ship owners cared about results, not procedures. Insurance companies cared about failure rates, not paperwork. And by every measure that mattered, human repair methods were proving superior to traditional approaches. 3 months after his first visit to Kim's garage, Veltar was back at Kepler Station again. This time he wasn't there for repairs. He was there to see what had become of the small human operation that had saved his ship and possibly his career. Bay 94 was now the center of a sprawling complex that occupied the entire lower ring of the station. Dozens of ships were docked for repairs. The waiting list had grown to 3 months, but captains were willing to wait because they knew the results would be worth it. Dohyun had hired more humans, and he was training alien engineers in human methods. The facility had become part repair shop, part engineering school, part research laboratory. You've built something amazing here, Veltar told Dohyun. We've just shown people that there's more than one way to solve a problem, Dohyun replied. The galaxy spent so long learning the right way to do things that everyone forgot there might be better ways. Veltar woke up to emergency alarms screaming through the station. Red lights flashed in the corridors. His room's communication panel crackled with urgent messages from station security. He jumped out of bed and ran toward Bay 94, his heart pounding with fear. The scene he found was chaos. Station maintenance crews were everywhere, sealing emergency doors and checking pressure suits. A section of the outer hull near Bay 94 had a jagged hole the size of a small vehicle. Through the transparent aluminum emergency barriers, Veltar could see stars where solid metal should be. Micrometeorite strike, Dohyun explained when Veltar found him. The human looked tired but calm. Happens sometimes out here. Usually the station's shields catch them, but this one got through. Veltar looked through the barriers at his ship. The Crimson Talon had been almost ready to fly again. Now it had fresh damage along the port side. Twisted metal and exposed wiring showed where the meteorite's impact had torn through both the station and his vessel. How bad is it? Veltar asked, though he was afraid to hear the answer. Dohyun walked closer to the barriers, studying the damage. Could be worse. The hull breach missed your main systems, but it knocked your sensor array out of alignment and damaged some of the work we just finished. How long to repair it now? At a normal facility? With proper procedures and safety inspections? Dohyun shrugged. Maybe 4 weeks. They'd want to cut out all the damaged sections, order new parts, follow every regulation. Veltar felt sick. 4 weeks was too long. His crew was already getting restless. Some were talking about finding transport on other ships rather than wait. His cargo contract had penalty clauses that would bankrupt him if he was much later. What about your way? He asked quietly. Dohyun smiled. My way? We fix it now, today, before the metal gets cold. But the station hull is breached. There's no atmosphere in Bay 94. How can your team work? Ever heard of combat repairs? Dohyun asked. Sometimes you can't wait for perfect conditions. Sometimes you have to fix things while they're still breaking. Within minutes, the human team was suiting up in environmental gear. Veltar watched in amazement as they prepared to work in the vacuum of space. Most repair crews would wait for the station to install temporary atmosphere barriers. That process alone could take days. Jiyoung was the first one ready. Her environmental suit looked different from the standard station gear. It was slimmer, more flexible. She moved in it like it was a second skin. Where did you get these suits? Veltar asked. We made them, Taehyun replied, checking his helmet seals. Standard suits are built for safety first, mobility second. These are built for working first, looking official second. Are they safe? Safe enough, Taehyun grinned. We're not planning to take a long walk outside. Just need to fix your ship. The next few hours were the most terrifying and amazing thing Veltar had ever witnessed. The humans worked in near-vacuum conditions with tools that shot sparks and flame. They welded metal while floating weightless. They passed equipment through holes in damaged bulkheads. They treated the dangerous work like it was a normal day. The youngest member of the team, Seungjin Ko, volunteered for the most dangerous job. The Crimson Talon's sensor array had been knocked completely out of position. It now pointed toward the station's interior instead of out toward space. Someone needed to go outside the station and manually push it back into alignment. I'll do it, Seungjin said when Do-hyun explained the problem. Kid, that's a job for someone with more experience, Do-hyun replied. I'm the smallest and lightest. I can get into spaces the rest of you can't reach. Plus, I've done plenty of spacewalks on mining ships. Seungjin was already putting on extra safety gear. It's just like adjusting a mining laser array except bigger. Veltar wanted to stop this madness. The sensor array weighed several tons. Moving it required precision measured in millimeters. While floating in zero gravity next to a space station, one mistake could send the young human flying off into space or crush him against the station hull. But Seungjin made it look easy. He attached thruster packs to the damaged array and used them to nudge it back into position. He worked slowly and carefully but without fear. Through the communication system, Veltar could hear him humming while he worked. How can he be so calm? Veltar asked Do-hyun. Seungjin grew up on asteroid mining ships, Do-hyun replied. To him, this is just another day at work. He's been doing spacewalks since he was 16. The real miracle happened with the quantum drive. The meteorite impact had destabilized the exotic matter containment field that Min-jae had spent hours repairing. The field was fluctuating wildly, creating dangerous resonance patterns that could tear the ship apart from the inside. Any normal repair facility would shut down the drive completely and start over. That would mean weeks of work and tens of thousands of credits in new parts. Instead, Min-jae suggested something that sounded completely insane. What if we don't fight the instability? He said during a team meeting in the damaged bay. What if we use it? Use it how? Do-hyun asked. The field is oscillating in a complex pattern, but it's not random. There's a mathematical structure to it. If we can tune the containment generators to match that pattern, we might be able to create a dynamic equilibrium. Ji-young looked confused. In plain language, please. Instead of holding the exotic matter perfectly still, we let it dance. We just make sure it dances in a way that won't destroy the ship. Veltar had studied quantum engineering for years. What Min-jae was describing violated basic principles that every student learned in their first year. That's impossible. Exotic matter containment requires absolute stability. Any fluctuation leads to catastrophic failure. According to traditional theory, yes, Min-jae agreed. But I've been reading some human research papers on chaos mathematics. Sometimes unstable systems can find their own balance if you give them the right conditions. You want to gamble my ship's life on human research papers? Captain, Do-hyun said gently, your ship is already dead. We're trying to bring it back to life. Sometimes that means trying things that have never been done before. The work took 6 more hours. The humans connected additional sensors to the containment field and programmed the generators to respond to the exotic matter's natural fluctuations. Instead of forcing stability, they created a system that moved with the instability. When they finally activated the new containment field, something amazing happened. The exotic matter didn't just stabilize, it became more efficient. The quantum drive was producing 12% more power than its original specifications. How is this possible? Veltar asked, staring at his ship's improved readings. Chaos theory, Min-jae explained. Sometimes complex systems work better when you let them find their own balance instead of forcing them into rigid patterns. Other engineers on the station heard about what the humans had accomplished. Most of them said it was impossible, even when shown the proof. A few asked to examine the modified drive, hoping to understand how it worked. But Veltar understood something more important. The humans hadn't just repaired his ship, they had made it better than it ever was. And they had done it by embracing possibilities that everyone else said were impossible. As he stood in Bay 94, watching his ship's systems come back to life, Veltar realized that he was witnessing something historic. The humans weren't just good at fixing broken things. They were changing how the galaxy thought about what could be fixed. Captain Veltar could not sleep. He had rented a small room on level 7 of the station, but worry kept him awake. Every few hours, he walked down to the lower levels to check on his ship. Each time, he found something that made him more nervous about trusting the humans. The first thing that bothered him was the noise. Most repair facilities worked in quiet, controlled environments. Bay 94 was loud with music, laughter, and the sound of power tools. The humans sang along to their music while they worked. They joked and argued. Sometimes they got so loud that other station residents complained. The second thing was how they worked. Galactic repair standards required detailed plans before starting any work. Teams needed to follow exact procedures. Every step had to be documented and approved by supervisors. The humans ignored all of this. They just started fixing things. Veltar watched a young human woman named Ji-Young Park crawl into one of his ship's ventilation shafts. The shaft was barely wide enough for her shoulders. She carried a small welding torch and a bag of tools. Most alien species were too large to fit in such tight spaces. They would have cut open the hull to reach the damaged areas. "What is she doing in there?" Veltar asked Do-hyun. "Fixing microfractures in the support beams," Do-hyun replied. "Your ship took a lot of hits. Little cracks everywhere. If we don't fix them now, they'll grow bigger and cause problems later. But the proper way is to remove the damaged sections and replace them with new parts." Do-hyun shrugged. "Sure. If you have 6 weeks and want to spend a fortune on new parts, Ji-Young can weld those cracks from the inside. Stronger than new when she's done." Through the open shaft, Veltar could hear Ji-Young humming as she worked. Sparks flew from her welding torch. She moved through the narrow space like she was born for it. No robot could do what she was doing. No alien engineer would even try. Another human, Tae-hyun Lee, was working on the ship's computer systems. Veltar found him surrounded by parts from 6 different manufacturers. Hegemony circuits mixed with Vorthak processors and Zephyrian memory cores. It looked like chaos. "This is against all regulations," Veltar said. "Different systems are not supposed to work together." Tae-hyun looked up from his work. "Regulations are written by people who want everything to be safe and predictable. But your ship's computer is already broken. Safe and predictable didn't help you when those pirates attacked." The human held up a small device. "This is a neural interface from a crystalline transport. It processes information faster than your original hegemony unit. This," he pointed to another component, "is a backup memory system from a Vorthak military cruiser. It can store 10 times more data." "But they're not designed to work with my ship's systems," Veltar protested. "Not originally, no. But that's the beautiful thing about computers. At the basic level, they all do the same thing. They process information. The trick is making them talk to each other." Tae-hyun grinned. "I speak 6 different computer languages. I can make anything talk to anything else." Veltar watched in amazement as Tae-hyun connected the different components. The human's hands moved quickly and confidently. He seemed to know exactly what he was doing, even though no textbook had ever described this kind of work. The most disturbing thing happened when Veltar found the humans eating lunch inside his ship. They had set up a small table in the cargo bay. Food containers and drinks were scattered around. Music played from a portable speaker. They talked and laughed like they were at a party, not working on a critically damaged vessel. "Is this normal?" Veltar asked Do-hyun. "Eating lunch? Sure, people got to eat. I mean, eating inside a customer's ship. Most repair facilities have strict rules about this. Most repair facilities treat ships like they're in a museum. Don't touch this, don't move that, fill out a form before you breathe on anything." Do-hyun took a bite of his sandwich. "We treat ships like they're meant to be lived in. How can we fix something if we don't understand how it really works?" A young human named Minji Choi was sitting at the table, but he wasn't eating. He was drawing diagrams on a tablet. His face was serious with concentration. "What's he working on?" Veltar asked. "Your quantum drive," Do-hyun replied. "That's our biggest challenge. The exotic matter containment field is completely shot. Normally we'd need to order replacement parts from the hegemony. That would take 3 months. So what will you do instead?" Minjae looked up from his tablet. "I've been studying your drive design. It's very similar to the antimatter containment systems we use in human deep space mining ships. The principles are almost the same." Veltar felt his stomach drop. Almost the same is not the same. Exotic matter is much more dangerous than antimatter. If the containment fails, it could destroy half the station. "That's why we're being careful," Minjae said. "But I think we can modify a standard antimatter containment unit to work with exotic matter." We'll add gravitational lensing to strengthen the field. It might even work better than your original system. Might work better? Veltar's voice rose. You're gambling with all our lives based on might work better? The humans looked at each other. Then Dohyun spoke quietly. Captain, your quantum drive is already dead. You came here because you had no other choice. We can try to fix it our way, or you can wait 6 months for proper parts and hope your life support lasts that long. Veltar wanted to argue, but he knew Dohyun was right. His ship was dying. The proper way would take too long. The human way was their only chance. That evening, Veltar stood outside Bay 94 watching the humans work. They had been at it for 18 hours straight, but they showed no signs of slowing down. Ji-young had finished welding the hull cracks and was now helping Taehyun install the new computer system. Min-jae was deep inside the engine compartment, modifying the quantum drive containment unit. Other aliens stopped to watch too. Word was spreading through the station that the humans were attempting something impossible. Some came to laugh at their crude methods. Others came out of curiosity. A few came hoping to learn something new. They're crazy, muttered a Zephyrian captain. No proper procedures, no safety protocols. They'll get themselves killed. But Veltar was beginning to see something different. The humans weren't careless. They were careful about different things. They cared about solving problems, not following rules. They cared about making things work, not making things look proper. As he watched them work, Veltar realized something that made him uncomfortable. Maybe the humans weren't the primitive ones. Maybe everyone else had become too focused on doing things the safe way, the approved way, the proper way. Maybe they had forgotten how to take risks and try new solutions. The humans were reminding the galaxy what it meant to be engineers. Captain Veltar gripped the command chair as another shudder ran through his ship. The metal groaned and twisted around him. Warning lights flashed red across every surface of the bridge. His crew looked at him with worried eyes, waiting for orders he wasn't sure he could give. The Crimson Talon had been beautiful once. Sleek silver hull, powerful engines, weapons that could punch through asteroid fields. Now it limped through space like a wounded animal. 3 days ago, pirates had attacked his cargo run near the hegemony border. His ship had fought them off, but the cost was high. Too high, Captain? His communications officer Zepim called out. His voice shook with fear. The quantum drive is showing critical failures. We have maybe 6 hours before complete shutdown. Veltar closed his eyes. Without the quantum drive, they would be stuck in normal space. It would take years to reach the nearest friendly port. His crew would die long before then. The life support systems were already failing. Air leaked through dozens of small holes in the hull. The recycling units couldn't keep up. Sir, there's a trading station ahead, Zepim continued. Kepler station, orbiting the 4th planet. They have repair facilities. Contact them. Tell them we need emergency docking and repairs. Veltar watched the main screen as the station grew larger. It was huge, built from dozens of different ship hulls welded together over the years. Lights twinkled from thousands of windows. Ships of every size and shape moved around it like insects around a flower. Captain, I'm getting responses from the repair facilities, Zepim said. He looked confused. Most of them are not good news. Show me. The first message came from Zephyrian Shipworks, the largest repair bay on the station. Their response was cold and professional. We are currently booked for the next 6 standard weeks. Emergency repairs require advance payment of 50,000 credits. Veltar's heart sank. He had maybe 3,000 credits in the ship's account. Not nearly enough. The second message was worse. The Crystalline Collective's facility quoted 200,000 credits for quantum drive repairs. They also wanted payment up front. Our insurance requires full payment before we begin work on military vessels, they said. The third message made Veltar angry. The Vorthak Engineering Guild simply said, "We do not repair hegemony military technology. Find another facility." "Sir," Zepim said quietly, "there is one more option. Tell me, there's a human repair bay on the lower levels. They call it Kim's Garage. Well, sir, it's not very popular with most alien captains." Veltar had heard stories about human engineers. They were new to space travel, barely 300 years since they discovered faster-than-light travel. Most galactic species looked down on them. Their technology was crude. Their methods were unrefined. They didn't follow proper procedures. They built things that looked ugly but somehow worked. "What do the other captains say about this place?" Veltar asked. "They say the humans are strange. They fix things in ways that make no sense. They use parts that shouldn't work together. They ignore safety regulations. Zepim paused, but they also say the humans always find a way to make broken ships fly again. Another warning alarm sounded. The ship's artificial gravity fluctuated, making everyone on the bridge feel dizzy for a moment. Veltar looked at his crew. They were good people. They trusted him to keep them alive. He had to try something. Contact this Kim's garage. Request emergency docking. The response came back in less than 5 minutes. It was a simple message. Bay 94, lower ring, section 12. Come on in, we'll take a look, that was it. No demands for payment up front. No questions about his ship's military classification. No long forms to fill out. Just a simple invitation. Bay 94 was exactly what Veltar expected from the stories he'd heard. The docking area was cluttered with spare parts, tools, and half-finished projects. Oil stains covered the floor. Music played from speakers that looked like they were built from scrap metal. The air smelled of hot metal and something that might have been food. A human walked up to meet them as they docked. He was shorter than Veltar, with broad shoulders and thick arms. His clothes were covered in grease and oil stains. His hands were scarred from years of working with sharp metal and hot plasma. This had to be Kim. I'm Do-hyun Kim, the human said. His voice was calm and friendly. Heard you folks are having some trouble. Captain Veltar of the Crimson Talon, Veltar replied. We have critical damage. Quantum drive failure, hull breaches, life support problems. Other facilities say it will take weeks to repair. Do-hyun walked around the ship looking at the damage. He ran his hands over the twisted metal hull. He peered into the engine compartments. He asked no questions about payment or insurance. He just studied the problems. Your ship's hurt pretty bad, he said finally. But she's not dead. Good bones, solid construction. The hegemony builds them tough. Can you fix her? Veltar asked. Do-hyun smiled. Son, I've been fixing broken ships for 30 years. Haven't met one yet that couldn't be made to fly again, given enough time and the right approach. He paused, thinking. Give me 48 hours. We'll have you back in space. 48 hours? Veltar couldn't believe it. The Zephyrians said it would take 6 weeks. Well, they're not wrong. If you do everything by the book, follow all the proper procedures, order exact replacement parts from the original manufacturers, yeah, it could take 6 weeks. Do-hyun shrugged. But there's more than one way to fix a ship. What about payment? The other facilities wanted money up front. We'll worry about that when the job's done. Right now, your ship needs help, and that's what matters. Do-hyun turned toward his workshop. I'll get my team started. You folks find a place to rest. Station's got decent food and cheap rooms on level 7. As Veltar walked away from the repair bay, he felt something he hadn't felt in days. Hope. The human's confidence was strange but comforting. Maybe the stories were true. Maybe humans really could work miracles with broken machinery. He looked back once at Bay 94. Through the open doors, he could see Do-hyun and his team already getting to work. They moved with purpose but without panic. They talked and laughed as they worked. It was unlike any repair facility he'd ever seen. For the first time since the pirate attack, Veltar allowed himself to believe his ship might fly again.